Hello, welcome indeed to Knitter Matters. This is season 3, episode 10. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're watching us live or the replay later. You are most welcome and I really appreciate you being here. I'm Cheryl Lampard. I'm an image consultant. I am a Craft Yarn Council certified knitting instructor and I am a fibre artist. I used to have a yarn store way back in Brighton, England, and one of the great joys of having a yarn store is that I got to teach people how to knit. I loved doing it then and I love doing it now. Regular viewers might have noticed that my menagerie behind me is growing. We have Prue, the alpaca. We have some gorgeous porcelain sheep in jackets. I have some new little characters here, little sheepy characters, in my lovely ever-growing collection of sheep and animal fibres. So Prue keeps me company. I think that they're such fun. They make me smile and I hope they make you smile too. So today we're going to look at some different ways to make buttonholes. And I will ask the camera to move now to the worktop. So we talked about buttons in season 1, episode 21, where I demoed several and went into detail about selecting the size of buttonhole depending on your button. And if you want to watch that, the easiest way is to go onto the Knitter Matters YouTube channel, and it's season 1, episode 21. Oh, hi Dawn, thank you for joining. Lovely to see you. Some of the things you need to remember, apart from button size, which of course is very important, and I went into that in greater detail in season 1, episode 26. This is just a selection of some of the buttons that I've got. I love buttons. These babies are from what was my favorite button store in New York, Tender Buttons, the most amazing button store. Millions of buttons. Unfortunately, they have now closed, which broke my heart when I found that out. But I think they closed for the best of reasons. The owners wanted to do that. So at least they didn't have to close because of illness. Anyway, these are just a few of my buttons, but these are gorgeous. I haven't decided what I'm going to put these on yet, but they're just delightful. So whatever your button, you do need to take into consideration the size before you decide on your buttonhole. And I would say that it's a good idea to buy your buttons before making the buttonholes. That way you can do a test swatch then to determine the buttonhole size. Now, and I've mentioned this before, when we sew garments, woven fabric, dressmakers, we usually make the buttonhole larger than the button because the button has to go through it. In knitting, it's actually better to make it smaller because the fabric stretches. If I just bring this little piece across here, you can see that I can, although it's quite small, I can actually get quite a substantial button through there if I want to. And certainly on this bigger buttonhole, again, not huge, but it's going to stretch, so I can get a bigger button than I might think through that. So, you know, you need to consider that. So if you can, buy the buttons before you make your garment, and then you can do test swatch with the yarn and see what sort of buttonholes you might like. So let's start with, while I have this in my hand, let me move these buttons out of the way. This is this sample just has eyelet buttonholes in them, and eyelet buttonholes are really simple. They're ideal for small buttons and for baby and children's garments. I've done these before, but I will just show you how to do the second of the two. This one is so simple. This first one, you literally go, you knit up to where you want your buttonhole, you knit 2 together, you put a yarn over and carry on. And on the next row, you would just work the row, you work the yarn over as a stitch. So to do an eyelet buttonhole, literally that's my knit 2 together, yarn over, finish the row, and on the return row, I'm going to work as normal. On this 2-stitch eyelet, which is a bit bigger, let me remind you how to do that. Again, very, very simple. Here is my 1-stitch. One stitch buttonhole there, and I'm going to do the 2 yarn over. It's slightly bigger, but let me show you. It's just as simple, but let me show you how to do this. So I'm going to work up to where I want my placement, which I think is going to be there. I'm going to knit 2 together. Then I yarn round twice. Now I'm going to do a slip, slip, knit. So that's slip, slip, knitwise in this case, and knit through the back of the loops. Whoops, hang on. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do that again. Knit 2 together, yarn round twice. Those are already seated as if I've slipped them, so I'm just going to knit through the back of the loops and knit to the end of the row. Now, on the return row for this one, you do something slightly different than just working the stitches as we did for the single buttonhole. So the first yarn over, I'm going to purl as normal. Well, clearly I can't just purl that one again because I'm going to get an enormous hole, but I purl into the back of the stitch of that yarn over. And that gives me my 2 yarn over eyelet buttonhole. Very simple. And that's, you'll get the 2 hole eyelet there. Did it there, did it there. That's the 1, that's the 2. So very simple. Now I'm going to show you another buttonhole that I really like. This is particularly nice on rib. This is called a vertical elongated eyelet buttonhole. Bit of a mouthful. Vertical because you're doing it on this one, you're going up in the rib. But you can just as easily do it if you're knitting, if you're picking up stitches along the edge of a garment front and you're knitting horizontally, you can just as easily do this buttonhole. What it means is that because it's vertical, it means it's going up with the knitting, not across it. So that's what we mean by vertical there. So it's another eyelet buttonhole, but it's super easy. So I'm going to rib to my position. Could you just lift the iPad a little? Thank you. Sorry, just asking my camera to go a little higher. So where am I going to go? Okay. So I'm ribbing to my position. I'm going to knit 1. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to knit 2 together. Okay. Now I'm going to rib to the end. So that was easy enough. Now on this return row, what you do here, and it makes all the difference to the neatness of the buttonhole, you go up to where that yarn over is, where the hole is rather. I've done something wrong there. What did I do wrong? Hang on, I'm going to reverse that. I've dropped something there. I'm trying to look around the iPad and I've missed something. Okay, rewind. I'm going to do that again. I'm sorry. What did I do? I should have had a stitch to drop. And I did something crazy there. Okay, so I've knit up to where I want my buttonhole. That's what I did wrong. I've got to knit 1, yarn over, knit 2 together. I know exactly what I did. I did the wrong thing there. Okay, this return row, what I do, I just work as normal. I was ahead of myself there. I'm going to work this row as normal, working that yarn over as an ordinary stitch. Takes a moment. I was forgetting there that this is a 3-row working rather than 2. Right, on this next row, which is a right side row again, when I get to my position where I have purled over the hole, this is the important bit, I now purl this the yarn over with the purl stitch together and drop that off the needle. Okay. Let me show you that again. Let me just whiz back this way and then I'll show you. I don't like doing two buttonholes on top of each other, but I want to just show you that it's three very easy rows, but to work that particular buttonhole, this eyelet one, it is 3 rows. And you start with a right side row, which I'm going to do now. Okay. Knit, purl. Oh, it seems an age when I'm trying to get along here. I'm sure it does to you too. So, knit 1, yarn over, knit 2 together, purl to the end of my row. Jackie, you're watching. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to have you here. I work the second row of this buttonhole row as normal. So I just work across it. It's very warm here tonight. I expect it's very warm where you are too. Right, this is my final row for that. So I'm working up until where I get to the hole made by the yarn over. You can see there's the yarn over, there's the purl, well, it would have been the knit stitch on the other side, but it's showing as a purl here. I knit them both together, take them off the needle and carry on. And as you can see, it gives me a really, really nice elongated buttonhole. And it looks good on either side. You know, some buttonholes don't look so good on the wrong side. This one looks really nice. So it's perfect for, you know, garment, cardigan fronts, things like that. So that's our elongated with buttonhole. Now, that's a good one for a baby garment. Oh yes, I should say this. This is a good one for a baby garment or child's garment. Baby garment, if you're not sure which side you want to do the buttonholes, you know, traditionally we put for girls, we put the buttonholes on the right side. Traditionally for boys, it's on the wearer's left. You can do it wherever you want. But if you do want to sort of pick sides, as it were, knitting guru Elizabeth Zimmerman did a wonderful thing. She said to do it on both the button bands, if you're not sure which side you want them on, both button bands, and the one that you don't use, you can actually just use for the buttons afterwards. So you can just, you know, by the time you stitch your button on, that's not going to show. You know, you close that up, you just stitch your buttonhole. But it also acts as a great marker for where the buttons will go. So, brilliant little tip. Wish I'd thought of it myself. Okay, now this one I'm going to do, okay. So there's several versions of buttonholes for any sort of stitch pattern really, but some don't look as good as others on whichever stitch pattern you use. For example, some look great in stockinette stitch, but might not be as visually pleasing in garter stitch. Now this particular method I think looks pretty good in garter stitch. It's pretty neat. It's actually quite sturdy. It'll withstand a lot of buttoning and unbuttoning. And I like it very much. I'm going to show you how to do this. It does require a little bit of application. You have to think about this. And there's lots of different ways of doing a one-row buttonhole. But I particularly like this. I did try it in stockinette stitch, but I didn't like the result very much. So this is one I think I'm going to keep just the garter stitch. So for this one, we're starting on the right. So hi, Barbara. Thank you for watching. I have cast on here, what have I cast on? 9 stitches. So I'm going to knit 3 here. I'm going to slip 1 purlwise, and I'm going to bring the yarn to the front of my work. I'm going to slip another one, and I'm going to totally ignore the fact that my yarn is there. I'm going to bind off those 2 slip stitches. I'm going to slip another one, slip it past that over, and I'm going to slip another one and bind off. I've now bound off 3 stitches. Okay. I need to put this stitch here that is on my right hand needle. I want to put that back to my left hand needle, and then I turn the work. I now need to bring the yarn back to face me. I want it on the wrong side. This is the wrong side of my garter stitch. So I'm going to purl into the first stitch on my left hand needle, and I'm going to put it back on the left hand needle. I'm not going to take it off there. I'm actually going to tighten that up a little bit, snug that up a bit. I'm going to do the same thing again, and I'm going to do it again. I actually want to get 4 stitches on, which is 1 more than I bound off. So let me just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need another one. So I'm purling, but I'm not taking it off. I'm putting it back on that left needle, okay? So now I turn the work again. Okay. What I'm going to do now is slip the first stitch that's on my left hand needle to my right hand needle, and I'm going to pass this stitch, the first one that's on my right hand needle, over that one. That kind of closes the buttonhole, and I'm going to snug that up. That's the extra stitch taken care of. Now I'm just going to knit to the end of the row. Let me knit back, and I will show you what that looks like, and then I will do it again because it is a bit complicated, but you get a very nice result for garter stitch. If you do it, take your time to do it. It's worth doing. But I think it gives you a really nice, clean buttonhole. So you can hardly see it there. It sort of disappears into the garter stitch. Let me show you again. I've got another little piece here that I'm going to do it on, because to try and do that on top of that one will be quite messy. So I'm going to knit 3. I'm on my right side of my work. And you can try this on any stitch pattern. As I said, I didn't like it so much on stockinette stitch. Don't know what it looks like yet on seed stitch. Haven't tried it, but it's particularly nice for garter stitch, or reverse, maybe reverse stocking stitch. It would work well too. I will give it a try. So I've knit 3, or you knit up to wherever you want your buttonhole. You slip one and you bring the yarn forward. I slip another one and I bind off that stitch. I completely ignore the yarn here. I slip another one purlwise and I bind off that. I slip another one and I bind off. So I've bound off 3 stitches here. Okay. Now I am going to slip the first stitch on my right hand needle back to my left hand needle, and I'm going to turn the work. So my yarn now is over here, and I'm going to bring it forward. So it's actually at the back of the work, but it's facing me, because this is my wrong side now. So I'm going to purl into the first stitch on my left hand needle, but I'm going to put it back on the left hand needle. I'm going to purl again, and I'm going to purl again, but I'm not dropping them off. I want to check that I've got 1 more than I bound off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Need to do it 1 more time. Okay. Now I turn the work again. So I'm back to my right side, and the yarn is at the back where I want it. I slip this first stitch from my left hand needle to the first stitch from my left hand needle to the right needle, and then I bind off this one, which that's taken care of my extra stitch. Now I knit to the end, and that return row. So it's a one row, it's called a one row buttonhole because you're not increasing the amount of rows you're working. So that could be important in your size of band, especially in garter stitch, which tends to be super stretchy. So it's a good one because you're not increasing necessarily the size of the band. You're almost doing sort of short rows because you're turning, but it's a really nice buttonhole. It's pretty sturdy. It's not fun to have to unpick it, let me tell you, because of those bind-offs, but it's a really nice little buttonhole. So you might want to put that in your buttonhole arsenal. Hi, Deborah. Nice for you to join us. Thank you. Right. Now, the next one is, this I think is my new favourite buttonhole. I love this one. Let me pick up the right needle. I've got two different needle sizes here and I want to make sure I'm picking up the right one. That will do nicely, thank you. Okay, I love this. This is decorative and a super solution if you don't yet know where you want the buttonholes to be. Now, I know that sounds odd, but perhaps you're doing a long border around the front of a jacket and you're not sure really where you want the placement to be. With this, you can decide exactly where and how many buttons you want, and you could sort of arrange them in ways that are a bit unusual, really, because your button, this is a little big, I don't know, it's got a shank, but your button will go in there. There, this one is a little big. I don't think I've got a smaller one handy, but you get the gist. What you're doing, you've got a little eyelet, really, in every part of this mock cable, which is decorative in itself, but you could absolutely choose where you want your buttons. You could have, you know, there, you could have sort of three in a row and then have a gap and three more or whatever. But this is a super nice way of deciding afterwards where you want your buttons, and you don't do anything with the eyelets that you're not using for buttonholes. They're just decorative. So this is one to really consider. It's very simple. I've actually made a border here of 11 stitches, but the pattern itself is worked over 5 stitches and 4 rows. So this is my right side. Let me get up to where I need to be, which is right here. Let's get that out the way so you can see properly. Okay, so now I'm going to purl 1 and knit 3. That's simple enough. Purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, then finish my row. As I say, it's 5 stitches and 4 rows, so super simple to do. Nothing tricky on this one, but very effective. I'm on my wrong side row now. I'm going to knit 1, purl 3 once I get there. So this is my 5 pattern stitches here. Knit 1, purl 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm a bit ham-fisted here. I'm trying to work around the iPad without knocking it. Now, this is the row that we make our mock cable. It's a right side row again. So I'm going to work up to where my pattern needs to be. So it's purl 1. Now this is where we slip knitwise. I'm going to slip 1 knitwise. I'm going to knit 2, and I'm going to pass my slip 1 over the knitted 2 stitches. Purl 1, finish my row. I'm going to do it again for you. And it's so simple. You could end up doing yards of this because it's so therapeutic to do, and it's so pretty as it comes along. You could end up with actually a border much longer than you want. And then on this return row, you just, when you get there, sorry, that was my knit one, this was my purl one, and then we do a yarn over, purl one, knit one. I will show you those 4 rows again because they're very quick, and I want you to see how easy that is to do. Oh, thank you, Linda. Linda likes the garter stitch buttonhole. I'm glad you're going to try that. Thank you, Linda. It's always nice when you like a new technique or something that you haven't seen before. Maybe you've seen it before, but have forgotten it. It's easy to do. Right, so we're back to row 1. So it's purl 1, knit 3, and then whatever you want to do for the rest of your border. I'm just going to keep doing my little ribby bits either side. Row 2 is super simple. It's your wrong side row. You're just knitting the knits and purling the purls here on this one. Purl 3. Then the next 2 rows are sort of where the magic happens. Row 3. Nearly there. Right, purl 1. Now I'm going to slip 1 knitwise, knit 2, pass that slip stitch over those 2 stitches, finish off this row, and then the next row is where you do the yarn over. Super easy. And you could do as much either side. You could even do 2 rows of that, 2 columns of that if you wanted to. So purl 1. So I did my knit 1, purl 1. Now I do my yarn over. Purl 1, knit 1. Just finish my row. And there you have it. Super nice. So you could do, maybe a couple of rows of rib, another column if you wanted to. Depend how wide you wanted the border. But really, really nice effect. I think this is a new favourite of mine for a while. Okay, I hope we have coming up to the half hour. So I will ask the camera to come back to me. Gosh, I'm sorry, I'm all pink in the face. It's so warm. Flushed. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. As always, this episode will be uploaded to Facebook and to YouTube within 24 hours. If you're searching for it later, it's season 3, episode 10. The other 2 episodes that I mentioned, if you want to refresh your memory on other buttonhole methods, season 1, episode 21, and season 1, episode 26. So hope you enjoyed this episode of Knitting Matters. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, stay well, stay calm, and stay knitting. Bye for now.